I'm 105 years old, and in the last 6 months I've sat beside 11 people as they died. Not as a nurse, not as a doctor, just as the old woman in the hospice wing who's been here so long they forget I'm a patient too. And every single one of them, in those final hours when the morphine starts to wear thin and the truth comes flooding in, they say the same thing. Not, "I wish I'd worked more." Not, "I wish I'd been more successful." They say, "I thought I had more time." And then they cry. Grown men who built companies, women who raised 6 children, people who seem to have it all figured out. They all cry the same tears, speak the same regrets, reach for the same ghosts. And I know exactly what they're feeling, because I'm about to tell you something I should have understood 80 years ago, but I was too young, too stubborn, too convinced I was different. I wasn't different, and neither are you. Let me take you back to when I actually learned this. May 3rd, 1943. I was 24 years old, married to a man named Thomas. We'd been married 11 months. He worked for the railroad, and I worked at the elementary school teaching 2nd grade. We lived in a tiny apartment above a bakery in Cincinnati, and every morning I'd wake up to the smell of fresh bread and his arm draped across my waist. That morning he kissed my forehead like always, said, "See you at 6, Eleanor." He always said 6, never tonight or later. Always 6. Specific, like he was making me a promise. Except at 4:30 that afternoon, 2 men from the railroad came to my classroom. I saw them through the window, standing by the principal's office, holding their hats, and I knew. A coupling failed. The cars crushed him. They said it was instantaneous. They said those exact words like it was supposed to comfort me. Instantaneous. Like speed makes death less permanent. That night I sat on our bed holding his pillow, and I made myself a promise. I promised I would never take anyone for granted again, never assume I had tomorrow, never waste a single moment with the people I loved. I meant it. God, I meant it with everything I had. And then I met Harold 2 years later. Good man, steady. We got married, had 3 children, Martha, James, and Robert, named him after the railroad, which Harold thought was morbid, but I insisted, and life got busy. Diapers and school plays and bills and promotions and Harold traveling for work, and somewhere in all that busy I forgot. Not forgot Thomas. You never forget your first love, but I forgot the promise. I started saying later again. Not now, honey. I'm tired. Maybe this weekend. Let me finish this first. Harold would ask me to take a drive with him on Sunday afternoons, and I'd say I had to meal prep for the week. He'd want to stay up talking after the kids went to bed, and I'd say I had laundry to fold. Little refusals, tiny postponements. They felt reasonable at the time, responsible even. I was being a good mother, a good homemaker. But here's what I didn't understand. I was breaking my promise every single day, and I didn't even notice. Harold died in 1989. Heart attack, 67 years old. We'd been married 42 years. And you want to know what I thought about at his funeral? Not our wedding, not the birth of our children, not the big moments. I thought about all those Sunday afternoons I said no to. I counted them, 42 years, roughly 2,000 Sundays, and I said no to at least half of them. 1,000 drives we didn't take, 1,000 conversations we didn't have. 1,000 times I chose laundry over love. My daughter Martha died 6 years later, 51 years old, aneurysm. She went to bed with a headache and never woke up. Her husband found her in the morning. I remember going to her house after, helping pack up her things and finding her calendar. It was full. Doctor's appointments for her kids, PTA meetings, oil changes, grocery lists. And in the margins, she'd written little notes to herself. Call Mom this week. Send Dad birthday card. Visit Grandma's grave. All these intentions, these plans for later. Later never came for her. She was going to call me that week. I know because she told me the Sunday before. She said, Mom, I'm sorry I've been so busy. I'll call you this week and we'll really talk. And I said, that's fine, sweetheart, whenever you have time. Like time was infinite, like we both had decades left. We had 6 days. My son James is still alive. He's 81 now, lives in Arizona with his third wife. We talk every few months, short calls, surface stuff. How's the weather? How are the grandkids? We don't talk about anything real. And whose fault is that? Mine. Because somewhere along the way, I let easy replace intimate. I let routine replace relationship. And now we're both so old and so set in our patterns that neither of us knows how to bridge the gap we built together, brick by brick, over 60 years. My son Robert, the one I named after the railroad, he died in 2003, 73 years old, complications from diabetes. I sat with him in the hospital for 3 weeks before he passed. And you know what we talked about most? Work, his career, his accomplishments, all the things he did, and only once, the night before he died, did he say what he really wanted to say. He said, Mom, I don't think I was very happy. And I wanted to ask him why. I wanted to have that conversation, but the nurse came in to adjust his medication, and then he was too tired, and then it was too late. We had 3 weeks together, and I got one true sentence. Now let me tell you about the people I've watched die here. Because this is where it gets important. This is where you need to listen. There was Margaret, 89, breast cancer. She'd been a lawyer, successful, made partner at 35 back when that was impossible for women. Should have been proud. Should have died satisfied. Instead, she spent her last week crying about her daughter. They'd had a fight 15 years ago about something Margaret couldn't even remember anymore. Pride kept them apart. 15 years of holidays alone. 15 years of birthday cards unsigned. And in her final hours, she kept saying, I thought she'd call. I thought we'd fix it. I thought I had time. There was Raymond, 92, stroke. He'd been married 58 years before his wife died. And you know what his biggest regret was? He said he spent 40 of those years working 60-hour weeks building a business to give her a good life. But she didn't want a big house or fancy vacations. She wanted him home for dinner. She wanted him to dance with her in the kitchen. She wanted ordinary time together. And he gave her everything except what she actually asked for. Now the business is gone. Sold to strangers, the money spent, and he's dying alone, wishing he'd danced more. There was Patricia, 78, lung cancer, never smoked a day in her life, just bad luck. She had 5 children. They all lived within an hour of her. And you know how often they visited that last year? Maybe once every few months, not because they didn't love her, but because everyone was busy. Everyone had jobs and kids and obligations. Everyone thought they'd have time later. And Patricia, she made excuses for them. She'd tell me, they have their own lives. I understand. But every afternoon around 3 o'clock, I'd see her sitting by the window in the common room watching the parking lot, waiting. Just in case today was the day someone had time. Do you know how many people showed up to say goodbye in her last week? 2 out of 5. And the ones who came spent most of the visit on their phones, checking work emails, texting, scrolling. She died on a Tuesday afternoon. The parking lot was empty. And then there was Gerald, 86, prostate cancer. He'd been a high school principal for 30 years. Thousands of students passed through his doors. He shaped entire generations of kids. You'd think he'd die surrounded by grateful former students, right? Wrong. He died alone on a Saturday morning. His wife had passed 10 years earlier. His son lived in Seattle, flew in twice a year if Gerald was lucky. And Gerald spent his last months talking about the same thing over and over, not his career, not his accomplishments. He talked about one Tuesday evening in 1987 when his son was 15 and asked him to go fishing, and Gerald said no. He had papers to grade, a budget meeting to prepare for, important work, and his son never asked again. Gerald said that was the moment he chose work over his boy, and he spent 40 years telling himself it didn't matter. One fishing trip. What's one fishing trip in a lifetime? But it wasn't one fishing trip. It was the fishing trip. The one his son remembers. The one that taught his son that Dad's work mattered more. And now Gerald's gone, and his son didn't even make it in time to say goodbye, stuck in Seattle traffic. 40 years of distance because of one Tuesday in 1987. But the one that broke me, the one I still think about every night, was Helen, 94, heart failure. She'd been a nurse for 50 years, delivered hundreds of babies, saved countless lives. But in her last days, she didn't talk about any of that. She talked about her sister, Rose. They'd grown up together in Philadelphia, shared a bedroom for 18 years, were inseparable as children. And then Rose got married in 1952 and moved to California. Helen stayed in Pennsylvania. They wrote letters for a while, then cards at Christmas, then just a phone call every few years. Helen kept saying, "We were going to visit each other. We made plans, but something always came up. Work, kids, money, something." Rose died in 1998. Helen never saw her again after 1951. 47 years. They lived 47 more years and never once made it a priority to see each other. And Helen, lying in that bed, kept saying the same thing. She was my sister, my only sister. We were supposed to have time. The day before Helen died, she grabbed my hand and said, "Don't let them make my mistake. Tell them that everything else can wait. Everything. But the people you love, they can't wait. They won't wait. Time doesn't care about your plans. I'm telling you this because you need to understand something. You think you're different. You think your relationships are stronger. Your family is closer. Your love is deeper. But Patricia's children loved her. Margaret's daughter loved her. Raymond's wife loved him. Gerald's son loved him. Helen loved Rose with everything she had. Love was never the problem. The problem was the same thing it's always been. Later. That word should be carved on half the tombstones in America. Later. We'll talk later. We'll visit later. We'll fix this later. We'll really connect later. And then later becomes never, and never becomes the thing that destroys you from the inside out when you're the one lying in a hospice bed counting all the laters you wasted. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. When was the last time you sat with someone you love and did nothing else? No phone, no TV, no half attention while thinking about work or scrolling or planning tomorrow. Just sat and talked and listened, really listened, not waiting for your turn to talk, not mentally composing your response. Just absorbed them, saw them, let them be fully real to you. Can you remember? Because I'm betting it's been a while. Maybe years, maybe decades, maybe never. And you think that's fine because you live together, or you talk regularly, or you see each other at holidays. But that's not the same thing. That's proximity. That's routine. That's maintenance. I'm talking about presence, about attention, about the radical act of making someone feel like they matter more than everything else for just 1 hour. When was the last time you did that? Your mother, if she's still alive, she's getting older. You know this. You see it. The way she moves slower now, forgets things, repeats herself. And it annoys you sometimes, doesn't it? Be honest. Sometimes you're impatient. Sometimes you cut the phone call short. Sometimes you make excuses why you can't visit, and you tell yourself it's fine, she understands, she knows you're busy. But here's what you don't know. Every time you cut that call short, every time you postpone that visit, every time you sigh when she tells that story again, it hurts her. She doesn't tell you because she doesn't want to be a burden. She doesn't want to make you feel guilty. But at night alone, she thinks about it. She wonders if you still love her, if she still matters, if she's become an obligation instead of a joy. And she's running out of time to find out. I know this because I'm that mother now. I sit here and I wait for the phone to ring. I tell myself my children are busy. They have their own lives. But the truth is simpler and more painful. They don't think about me the way I think about them. They don't count the days since we last spoke. They don't replay our conversations in their minds. They don't wonder if I'm lonely or scared or in pain. Not because they don't love me, but because they still think I'll always be here. They think there's time, and maybe there is, but maybe there isn't. And that uncertainty, that not knowing if this phone call is the last one, if this visit is the goodbye, that's what keeps me up at night. Your father, if you're lucky enough to still have him, he's not going to live forever. And when he's gone, you're not going to remember the ways he annoyed you. You're not going to care that he was stubborn or old-fashioned or hard to talk to. You're going to remember his hands, the way he smelled, the sound of his laugh, and you're going to wish desperately for just one more afternoon together. Just one more chance to ask him the questions you never asked, to hear the stories you never listened to tell him you understand now. You understand what he was trying to do, what he sacrificed, how much he loved you, even if he didn't know how to show it. You're going to want to tell him that all those times you rolled your eyes, or stayed in your room, or said you were too busy, you didn't mean it. You were just young and stupid and convinced you had forever. But you didn't have forever. You had exactly the amount of time you had, and you wasted so much of it. And your children, if you have them, they're watching you right now, watching how you spend your time, what you prioritize, who you make space for, and they're learning. They're learning that work matters more than presence, that phones matter more than conversation. That later is an acceptable answer, and someday when you're old and sitting by a window waiting for them to visit, you're going to remember this moment, this exact moment, and you're going to realize you taught them how to neglect you. You modeled the very behavior that's breaking your heart now, because that's what we do. We pass down our worst habits like heirlooms. We teach our children to be too busy by being too busy ourselves. We show them that emotional distance is normal by maintaining it in our own relationships, and then we wonder why they don't call, why they don't visit, why they treat us the same way we treated our own parents. Here's what dying people say in their final hours. They don't say, "I wish I'd been richer." They don't say, "I wish I'd been more successful or more famous or more impressive." They say names. They reach for ghosts. They cry for one more conversation with people who've been dead for 30 years. They apologize to empty rooms. They beg for forgiveness from children who stopped calling. They whisper, "I love you," to spouses who never heard it enough when it mattered. And then they say it, that same thing, every time. "I thought I had more time." 4 words that contain all the regret in the world. And you know what's worse than hearing it once? Hearing it 11 times in 6 months, 11 different people, 11 different lives, different careers, different families, different mistakes, but the same ending, the same realization, the same desperate wish for just one more day, one more hour, one more chance to do it right. And I sit here, still alive somehow, still breathing when so many aren't, And I think about what a waste it is, what a cruel waste that we only learn this lesson when it's too late to use it. That wisdom comes with age, but opportunities come with youth, and by the time you have the wisdom, the opportunities are gone. I'm 105 years old. I've buried 2 husbands, 2 children, most of my friends, and every single person I knew before I turned 50. I've outlived my entire generation and half of the next one. I've had 38,325 days on this earth, and if I'm being honest, truly honest, I was only fully present for maybe 100 of them, maybe. The rest I spent worrying about tomorrow, or regretting yesterday, or just going through the motions, sleepwalking through my own precious, unrepeatable life. And I'm telling you, with everything I have left, with every moment I wasted, and every person I took for granted, and every later that became never, I'm telling you this: you don't have more time. You have now. This moment, this day, this phone call you're about to make or not make, this visit you're about to schedule or postpone, this conversation you're about to have or avoid, that's what you have. And it's running out faster than you think. Stop reading this and call someone. Right now. Not later. Now. Call your mother. Call your father. Call your sister or brother or friend you haven't talked to in months. And don't make it a short call. Don't make it surface. Ask them something real. Tell them something true. Make them feel like they matter more than your to-do list. Because they do. God, they do. And you won't believe this until it's too late, but I'm trying to save you from that moment. That moment when you're sitting beside a bed or standing at a grave or staring at a phone that will never ring again, thinking, why didn't I call more? Why didn't I visit more? Why didn't I love them better when I had the chance? I'm out of time. My body knows it. My heart knows it. I'll be gone soon, another old woman who stayed too long and saw too much. But you're not out of time. Not yet. You still have today. You still have this moment. You still have people who love you and miss you and are waiting for you to come back to them. Don't make them wait until it's too late. Don't let later win. Later never comes. It never has. It never will. There is only now, and the people you love, and the time you have left together. Use it, please. Use it before it uses you up and leaves you here, like me, like all of us, whispering the same 4 words into the darkness. I thought I had more time.